This is Petra, the city the Nabateans carved out of the desert itself. They didn't build with bricks, wood, or steel. Everything was sculpted straight from stone, meter by meter, layer by layer, from the top down. The rock became their walls, their roofs, their temples, their homes, their tombs.
They turned entire mountains into dwellings for both man and gods. Each project began by choosing the right cliff face. Team leaders called Raid roamed the valley searching for rose-colored cliffs without cracks or black streaks. Once found, they built scaffolding from palm trunks and camel leather ropes, stretching animal hides overhead to block the sun. The workers started from the top, using copper chisels and stone hammers to carve their way down. Every strike had to be perfect, because one wrong blow could ruin an entire section, months of labor lost to dust. Every swing of the hammer was a vow. That stone would yield to human hands. The strongest workers handled the rough cutting, shaping the massive blocks that formed the framework. Once the outlines appeared, the master artisans took over. They sat for hours beneath the blazing sun, holding tiny chisels to carve Corinthian columns, the folds of robes on statues, the curling vines across archways. No one spoke much. Only the sound of falling stone and steady breathing filled the air. At noon, the desert wind burned their faces. Nabatean women carried water in leather pouches to quench the workers' thirst. Children ran about, collecting tools and pouring fine sand into cracks to steady the hammer's grip. In the shade, priests burned frankincense and prayed to Dushara, the guardian god of the Nabateans, asking for strength in their hands. The scent of incense mixed with stone dust, a sacred, weary fragrance that smelled like sweat and the breath of the earth. By afternoon, the sunlight slid down the cliffs newly carved. Columns and domes began to take shape. Under that glowing light, the stone seemed to burn red like fire. Supervisors walked the line, checking proportions, adjusting right angles, measuring distances with wet linen cords. No metal rulers, only the eye and experience. A young mason, standing high above, looked down at the nearly finished facade with pride. He knew his chisel marks would outlive him. At the heart of the valley, Al-Khazna, the treasury, slowly came to life. 2 levels, 6 massive columns, carved entirely from a single 40-meter-high cliff. Only the most skilled artisans worked here. They toiled in silence, for even a loud shout could crack the stone. They carved from the top down, then shaped the columns, then hollowed the interior, each stage taking months. Inside, chambers emerged, their walls smooth as glass. When the morning sun hit the entrance, the whole facade blazed like flame, the moment priests called the breath of the god. Meanwhile, hundreds more labored on an equally vital task: water. In a land of thirst, water was life. Along the cliffs, they carved narrow channels, connected to clay pipes and cisterns. Rare mountain rain was captured and guided down into underground reservoirs. Some water was for the people and the workers. Some was poured over the stone during carving, because sandstone, when damp, grew softer, easier to sculpt, less likely to crack. Through water, even the hardest rock obeyed the hand of man, becoming columns, reliefs, temples. The chambers inside Petra were far from small. Each was hollowed deep into the rock, taller than a man, stretching dozens of feet inward, with main halls and side rooms connected by perfectly square doorways. The walls were cool to the touch, tinged with pink and gold, streaked with swirling sandstone veins like smoke. Run your hand along them, and you can still feel every chisel mark, every strike of the hammer, the enduring trace of thousands who carved eternity from stone. At the heart of the great chambers, the Nabateans built altars, single blocks of stone carved into low square tables. Upon them sat clay jars filled with incense, gold, and olive oil, offerings to their gods. From a narrow slit high above, a single beam of sunlight struck the altar, one ray piercing the darkness. They had calculated the sun's position so that, at dawn, when the god Ra or Dushara awoke, the first light of the day would touch the altar. In that moment, the entire room glowed, the incense smoke rising and mingling with the breath of stone, and the Nabateans believed the gods were truly among them. The deeper one went, the smaller and quieter the chambers became. Here, the stone was polished until it mirrored the torchlight. The royal tombs lay hidden in sealed halls cut deep into the mountain. Each tomb was its own chamber, where a body rested upon a stone platform, surrounded by small niches holding personal belongings, gold jars, bronze mirrors, and figures of guardian spirits. Some tombs were carved with lotus flowers, phoenixes, or falcons, symbols of rebirth. In the dim light, those carvings seemed to move, as if the souls still lingered nearby. Inside the grand temples, the ceilings arched high, covered with spirals, vine leaves, birds, and tiny stars, a stone recreation of the heavens. Voices echoed off the rock, sounding like the voices of gods. The walls were never painted. The natural stone itself provided a palette of colors. Deep red near the base, amber in the middle, fading to pale violet near the top. When the torchlight flickered, the veins of sandstone seemed to flow like water, giving the sense that the worshippers were standing inside a living being. In the central amphitheater, the air was entirely different. Rows of stone seats curved in a half circle, rising up the slope of the mountain. When sound rose from the stage, it carried perfectly, echoing across every tier to the farthest seat. The Nabateans understood acoustics with astonishing precision. They carved small hollows behind the seats to reflect sound evenly, without distortion. Here, they held not only plays and music, but also great rituals, when thousands gathered to pray for rain or celebrate the new year. High above, priests lit sacred fires, and columns of smoke rose to the sky, blending with songs that thundered through the valley. In the residential and market quarters, inside the smaller chambers, the Nabateans built stone shelves, storage basins, and pottery kilns. They didn't construct temporary houses. The mountain itself was their roof. The rooms were carved side by side, linked by narrow passages that occasionally opened into small wells. At night, oil lamps flickered, reflecting across the stone walls in hundreds of trembling lights, until the entire mountain seemed to glow from within. At the city's center stood the Grand Temple of Qasr al-Bint, the only structure that combined carved rock with built masonry. Inside, massive round columns supported a roof over 20 meters high. The air was heavy with resin, pine, and incense. Only priests and nobles could enter here. Barefoot, draped in white linen, holding torches, they walked between two rows of statues carved in the likeness of guardian gods. When the ritual drums sounded, the whole temple seemed to quiver, as though the mountain itself was breathing. Beneath Petra, the Nabateans built an underground world. Storage vaults and cisterns carved from within, lined with waterproof plaster and sealed by stone doors. Because of them, even in the blazing desert, Petra remained cool, moist, alive. It was said that in the height of summer, if you stood in the deepest chambers, you could hear the faint dripping of water from clay pipes above, the heartbeat of the city. Each day, the Petra Valley pulsed like a living organism. At dawn, cooking smoke rose from the workers' camps, and songs of labor echoed between the cliffs. Women wove cloth, elders watched over children, young men sharpened chisels, artisans polished stone, priests offered prayers. Everyone had a role. By night, when the campfires burned bright, they gathered to tell stories of gods who gave souls to stone, and of their faith that this city would be the eternal home of both man and deity. And after decades of toil, the vast mountain face had transformed into a city of the gods. Towering columns, winding corridors, and domes that touched the sky. When the first light of dawn struck, Petra blazed like a red torch in the heart of the desert. The workers stopped, gazing upon what they had built. They did not know that this place, born of wind and stone, would outlive them all. But in that moment, they believed they had touched eternity. A city carved from rock, built by human hands and faith.